This is the John Hallett Podcast with John Hallett.
Because the way we're living, we need to change it, make it change today, and all learn from failure. Maybe they just wanted it a little bit more than you. That's probably the fact.
And now your host, John Hallett.
Hey everybody, welcome back. Today I am joined with Nick Grove, longtime member here, nearing retirement in his career in law enforcement. So that's something super awesome accomplishment to make it that far in such a profession I have a lot of respect for, because you guys have just such a hard job. So how you doing today, Nick?
Good, I'm good. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
Yeah, we've been trying to do it for a while, and of course we got little mini police dogs. You guys have not made good police dogs. You guys, I know the office is up in chaos, and you guys are like, people are here. You guys need to lie down. We got our Frenchies, Axel and Leo. They're going to be featured on a short pretty soon. They got their own fighting style.
Nice.
And it's actually funny to watch the dogs, because Axel will try to control the head. He'll post off. He goes for a single leg. Axel got a good single leg, don't you, Axel? So, well, how did you get started here at RMSDF?
Well, so I actually got started. It's an interesting story, because my kid was being bullied in elementary school, and he was ending up in the nurse's office a lot because of being injured from the other students that were bullying him. And he wanted to get into martial arts. So I looked around what was available in town. And from there, I found the Krav gym. And because of law enforcement, that's something we use as part of our law enforcement training, is Krav. We moved from Koga, which is an older style, probably dating myself a little bit. And then we moved into a Krav style defense system to help us retain our weapons. And if we get taken like a gunpoint or something like that, they teach us techniques that are based on Krav. So I knew some knowledge about it from trainings throughout the time we were working through the department. And so I brought him in, and he went from being basically pushed around and dumped all the time at school and getting hurt to not. So the skills that he learned here were impactful. So he stopped going to the nurse's office after that. I didn't spend any more time on the phone with the nurse, because they weren't beating him up in the lunchroom anymore. So he found that self-confidence there that was available to him already, but he was able to take that because he's already a big kid. He was a big kid back then too. I think that might be why he got picked on a lot.
Yeah.
So as time went, when he first started, I was actually injured. So I didn't join Krav at that point. But at a certain point, he kind of grew up and lost a little bit more interest in Krav. And I looked at it as, when I joined, I had two purposes when I joined. When I knew I was getting a little bit older in the law enforcement profession, and the times are changing, and it's getting a little bit more violent towards police officers and a little bit more dangerous. And then also I always have struggled with my weight on and off throughout the time when I've been on the department. So there was twofold part for me when I started looking at Krav. Was when I wanted to protect myself, I wanted to survive, I want to live longer. If somebody attacks me, I want to have more tools to help protect myself. And I'd been through some other martial arts also already, so I had a pretty good feel of my time at other places. So, and I knew about Krav because Alex spent 7-8 years here. So that's why I came, and then my second biggest goal was, I just struggled past those last 10 or 15 pounds, which I still struggle with today, but I'm down probably about 17 pounds since I started here. And I've been able to keep them off, and it's kind of my goal. Every year, I have a year measurement, actually. Every year I kind of like, okay, did I make it down to that 10-pound mark? Because at a certain point, these are the little tiny weight differences. Like 5 pounds for me is really hard to get that and then maintain it. I'll bounce down and then I bounce right back up, which gets to be a little bit frustrating sometimes, but you just have to fight through that.
Yeah, it's trying to hold those smaller increments.
It really does. So
for a longer time versus a bigger jump.
So, and my fight skills here have grown immensely from when I started 6 or 7 years ago. My confidence is a lot better. I'm dealing with people. I look for a lot better angles. Have a lot better understanding. My fight technique is a lot better. It's not great. I still get hit a lot, which is what it is. So and then through the program, about a year and a couple months ago, we started the Integrated Defensive Strategies Citizen Defender program, and I think that's helped grow my pistol skills like immensely. Just the practicing with the CERT pistol and all the training that we've done through that process. So I think as a whole person, I've grown a lot more as time has gone on, just by the simple fact that I come all the time. I don't like getting injured. I still try to show up injured, which is bad for me a lot of times nowadays. But I just don't, even if I'm out for 3 or 4 weeks, I just get back into it and fight through the first couple of weeks of, because there's like, anytime I get injured, I take a few weeks off. The first couple days back, I feel so terrible because I just feel like I don't have the strength or the energy, and I just go a little bit slower, and I've had to learn to manage that. So I don't feel so bad after the first 2 workouts that I want to take 2 more weeks off.
Yeah.
And so that's been struggles with some injuries and struggle with weight. And
yeah, I want to tell, when you backtracking to when you signed Alex up, you were injured and on desk duty, correct?
I had a back injury from a car accident.
Okay. So that's when I had met you, and you look like so many of the parents. You were overweight, a little chunky, because you've made huge progress. You look totally different. You're strong, like, we all like, oh, the last 5 pounds or that stuff. But you've come so far. I remember when you started that your fighting skills were really limited because you're only training so much, right? In law enforcement, you kind of get out of the academy and you get your in-service, what is that, once or twice a year, and whatever you're doing. And we know how perishable those skills are. If you're not practicing them on a weekly basis, things just go out the window. And they really do. And I think a lot of people take that for granted in law enforcement. They kind of get I see a lot of people that want to go into law enforcement and they train with us and then they just completely fall off after the fact. So I think you training has upped your skill level so much. How you feel on duty now compared to before. What's the difference?
So hopefully, as an officer, I've always had that like survival mentality. So I've always, anytime that I've been involved in incidents, I always have had a winning mentality. I think that it always helps in the fight that I plan on winning. So, but the difference I think between when I started, before starting here, I don't think I had the skills to take it to the level I do now. Like I could get somebody on the ground and wrestle with them and get cuffs on them right before, or pin them and do stuff like that. But since I got here, I've been able to put more of that into place where now it's not so much of a struggle. If somebody moves to a certain position, I can move to a certain position, and it gives me a better advantage. In actuality, it reduces injuries for both me and the person I'm having a fight with, because I can end it a lot quicker than having to sit there and struggle with somebody or roll around with somebody. Chancing that I might get injured or
the longer it goes on,
right,
the bigger risk that we can get caught up in a bad position. Things can go wrong quickly, or somebody else jumps in. All those other factors there that happen out in the street.
So I think that's the biggest change, is that my confidence from before was like, I was always had a winning mentality before. My plan's always to win. But since I started here, not only do I plan to win, but I have more tools and I have a more focused ability to do the job and be comfortable with if I have to wrestle with somebody or if I have to fight with somebody, that I have the ability to follow through with what's going on instead of, you're right, my 3 or 4 different moves before I came here probably were like certain takedowns and stuff like that. But my go-tos like worked every time, right? And now I have other things that I can do and other control positions I can use and other management positions I can use. So if I did have to fight with somebody for a long time, that I have the abilities to control that.
Yeah, especially when somebody fights back, you have more skill set, and they're fresh. That's what I always love about just training. That you hear people like, the last time I got in a fight was 20 years ago. You're going, 20 years ago? So what? Maybe you got lucky then. Like, so many guys don't have a skill set to rely on. They just, I get in a street fight, I can handle myself. When they're so dynamic, and there's so many things that people could be doing to you, and have they wrestled through junior high, they wrestled through high school. Things that people are doing to you out there are just, it's not just a fist fight. There's so many things. Having that skill set to fall back on when things, go-to moves don't work, or they resist that. They're a little bit bigger, and they're fighting back, and kind of go-to moves. You have something else to go into. I think is so important with training. It always just blows my mind of, well, I got my badge, or, even people, I got my black belt, I'm good. And it's perishable. The week off you took, the month off you took, or you're slacking off, those are perishable skills. It just, if you really want to be safe, it's something that you need to do. And I kind of look back in your career or in your profession. I had a guy that was a couple of years, he's probably 4 years ahead of me in high school. And when I brought Krav Maga to Nantucket, I was talking to him on the beach, and like, look, I know I was doing Taekwondo and Hapkido stuff, and maybe that wasn't up your alley, but what we're doing with Krav Maga is so much more practical. And it's not specializing. It's, Bruce Lee, way of no way. Just whatever works. But he told me, it's like, well, why don't you try it? I don't know, I'm busy, and all the excuses we make that we hear no matter what profession somebody's in. And I said to him, I'm like, look, you're surf casting, you're in your shorts, you obviously have no gun, and you're in this little town. The guy that hates you, were you arrested for just drunk driving, and now he's pissed off that he can't get to work, and he sees you on the beach. What are you going to do? And I think he said to me, yeah, somebody comes at me with a knife or something, I don't know what I do. Right now, I don't have a skill set. And he had just had a baby. I'm like, don't you want to go home to that kid? Yeah. Like, why don't you find the time? Why don't you? People just make these excuses, and then, well, I have a gun at work. Well, right now, you're surf casting on the beach. I mean, maybe you can gouge him with the hook. Some of those bluefish lures are pretty big. You whack him with it. But it just blows me away why people don't want to train. Why do you think, and it's a stereotype of cops and donuts in the coffee shop. Why do you think law enforcement has gotten that stereotype?
Which, the donuts, or why they don't train?
Both of them.
Well, I think...
Even the coffee and donuts, that's a bigger one. most people don't know
As interesting as
the level of training, what they're doing on a weekly basis. Even if they're doing fitness, I know a lot more cops that work out, which does make you harder to kill, but you're strong, but it's not giving you a skill set to fall back on in fighting. So I definitely see more law enforcement doing fitness than fighting stuff.
And I think if looking at the process of the system, like when I joined the police department, I was running my miles were around just over 6 minutes 30 seconds, right around there. So I was pretty decent shape when I came on the department. And then you get to the academy and you sit there for 40 hours a week, take out food or whatever food happens to be brought with you that day is, and I'm not sure how financials are today's, but I was dirt poor when I came out of the department. So I had a cup of soup. That was my lunch during the academy. It was a cup of soup. So if you ever look at the ingredients for a cup of soup, it's terrible. The ingredients are, and I gained, and I lost probably 2 or 3 minutes on my run. I think I was running like almost 9-minute miles by the time I got done with it. And the academy's like 26 weeks long, so it doesn't take long for you to fall into that. So I moved out of training and moved out of.
You kind of what you're saying here is, it's not cops and donuts and getting overweight. It's all of America.
Yeah.
It's really, people like to say, oh, you always see the cops at the donut shop and the coffee shop and getting a little bit chunky, but pretty much that's the standard American demographic.
Yeah.
Right? They get thrown under the bus because they're supposed to be in shape, but how easy it is, just a little bit, to fall off. And all of a sudden, it's good. It's actually my wife talking about a brand of energy drink, and it was almost like 4 or 5 cups of coffee. She's like, no wonder why I feel great. And it becomes not, oh, I was feeling a little tired that day. It comes 5-6 days a week now that you're doing this energy drink. And actually the description on the internet was drink in moderation. It's like, what's moderation? I'm like, well, they're probably saying 1, but how many people are drinking 2 or 3 of those? And how much caffeine they're getting. But it's easy to fall in that trap from an energy drink to a little snack and a little snack at the break room and a little snack, and all of a sudden you've got 20 pounds and it gets harder to take off.
What do they do in the corporate world? Like once a week they do their staff meeting. What do they bring in for the staff meeting? Donuts, bagels, large amount of cream cheese. And realistically, it doesn't take much. I mean, I probably was falling out of shape within the first 3 or 4 weeks of the academy starting.
Yeah.
And then when you get done with the academy, you go out and continue training, but what do? You restaurant life. You have, and I tell the new people that come onto the job when they come on, and I go eat with them, and they order like the biggest plate on the menu. It's like, now you're skinny, you're 20 something, that's awesome, right now. But if you continue to eat like this, in another year or 2, it's going to be 20 pounds heavier and it sneaks up on you. And then you're like, well, what the heck happened? I gained. When I came on the job to my heaviest weight, I was up almost 70 pounds, 60, 70 pounds. By the time I started the job and was running 6-minute miles, 6:30 miles, to the time when I was like, oh, I got to get serious about losing weight, which was probably about 8-9 years into the job. And that's another thing. I mean, it's like fat, dumb, and happy hanging out. The check clears every couple of weeks. So don't have too much to worry about kind of thing, kind of life. And then I was like, dude, if I keep going this way, this is pant sizes or 3 pant sizes higher than 2. Yeah. 3. I'm like, well, this is awful. So then I picked up running back in the late 90s, early 2000s again, and that's where I was able to knock off the first good portion, 25-30 pounds of weight was right there as the running. And then I still ran, and I did some marathons until I got in a car accident, and then kind of stopped doing that.
Yeah.
And then I came back and I'm like, well, my legs and stuff like that aren't what they used to be for all that running and stuff like that. And training for a marathon is actually really difficult.
Yeah, I would never do that.
The amount of running we were doing a week, just
So
the
much
whole
pounding on the body.
the processes and everything else. And the truth be told, I lost another probably 15, 20 pounds running, but then it kind of became my body didn't. So I run. My legs are super strong. I squat a ton. I don't have a problem with that stuff. The rest of my upper body though.
Yeah, I don't. That's why I wouldn't
my
do
upper
it.
body is like
Marathon runners just don't look good to me. They're just. I mean, that's where CrossFit kind of got part of its start with Greg Glassman. It was the world's fittest man on Outdoor whatever magazine, and he said he was stuck under less than his body weight on the bench press, and he's like, this is the strongest man or the fittest man on the planet. Well, in that domain, but how about all around? And you see, I mean, what I was kind of hearing from you is, people get complacent.
Right.
They get complacent, and were you always in the city?
Yeah, I always
Okay.
in the same city.
You see some guys, they get complacent because not a lot of action's happening. They might be in a nice small town, and then you don't need that skill set until you need it. I remember one law enforcement guy that came. He was working in the jail, and he got choked with the cord of it with his mic, and luckily, other officers were able to come and respond and help. If not, he's getting choked with his mic, and then it's now I need to do something. And I always hate that from no matter who it is, that you're going, oh my gosh, the odds are now past maybe a little bit because you needed the self-defense and you didn't have it. Now you're seeking it out. Well, you're definitely going to help with your confidence, and that's like the kids. Which always, I think I'm getting even more grumpy, actually. I kind of said to, I think it's Josh. I mean, it's like, not that I'm old, it's just Josh.
My wife says the same thing.
I get it.
Yeah, it's all Josh. That we had a mother, and it was great to see, like, tell the kid. Like, he didn't want to come. I'm like, it looks like the kid's having fun. And you don't want to come anymore. I'm like, well, you signed up for a sports season, just like football. Martial arts, the same thing. You signed up for Krav Maga, but I don't want to come anymore. I don't want to force them to do it. And as a parent, you hate to tell somebody to parent. I'm like, he said he wanted to get his orange belt. He said he wanted to do this. Why don't you remind him of getting in there? But you need it. And the parents that do bring him in, they might not even see the benefit because of the kid had confidence to begin with versus they were bullied. Would Alex be in that scenario if he had started, I forget what grade he started in, but we'll just say he started in preschool and had that confidence that we try to build here at RMSDF for the kids in Castle Rock and Douglas County. Would that parent even know that all of this training paid off because they never even got faced with a bully versus it's too late with the kids. We see them able to turn it around, unlike you're getting choked out with your own mic or shirt or whatever's happening. And you go, or, the women that we see come in that had something happen, it definitely does a ton for the psyche to get you back in after you've been attacked. I think it's really good to build that confidence back. But, people get complacent.
And there's a lot of truth in what you say about waiting till something happens before you start something, because a few years ago, I got in a big bar fight with some guy and ended up getting like 7 stitches over my eye and all kinds of stuff out of the fight. And I was like, dang, all I did was kind of ride him around until he gave up, to be quite honest.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, that kind of sucked. 7 stitches. Felt like trash fighting the guy. It was terrible. and then I was like, well, what can I do? And then I started a different martial art. So I waited. I waited till that point where I got 7 stitches. I had a big fight with somebody, and then I'm like, I better go do something, right? I better go run out, because it's already happened at that point in time. I should have been training before that.
Yeah.
And I did that martial arts for probably about 6 months to a year. I don't even remember. And then I got busy again. So life schedule changed.
Yep.
Unfortunately for my work, it's 24/7. So your schedule is not always friendly to the real world, life-wise. And so then I moved back out of it again. And then didn't do anything for a few years until I think I started doing this was the next martial arts that I picked up.
Yeah.
From that point in time where I'm like, okay, I'm enjoying this. But I didn't. There's some questionable stuff. But then I stopped again, right? It became inconvenient for me. I was back to work. I had more shifts. I had to make money for this.
It's never convenient.
It's never, it was, and so at a certain point it was like, well, I made that choice and I wish I would have made the other choice and prioritized that martial art and that
so
stuff
many
over.
people just prioritize fat and lazy and happy and
easy
versus and we won't get
the easy
down
button,
go down that path, but people they just go for the easy and complacent. I don't know. I've never been that way. I've always kind of worked out, so it's hard for me to sometimes relate of like I'm just gonna sit around even if when I go on vacation. Like, okay, I mean, usually working out somewhat a few days out of that trip, but I feel like crap. And I think people don't realize how crappy they actually are because their body adapts and they feel happy and lazy and they don't even realize what they're putting into their body. And like you said, it just slowly adds up. You look at this stuff and you're like, but I feel okay. But your body slowly adapted to that crappy way. The human body's amazing. But you're really not in shape. You're really not ready for anything you might need self-defense wise or just fitness wise. Mm-hmm. Right? I always tell the little kid, what if you have to drag your mom out of the house? It's burning on fire. Something. You can't quit. You want to be strong. You want to be fit. What are you going to get? It's like that guy said he can't carry his ammo cans to his pickup truck because he's so fat, but he's Mr. Badass talking crap and you have no fitness. You're going to be winded in a second. Not going to be able to hike anywhere. So, yeah, it's amazing, I think, in all of America. No matter what profession, it's just easy. And I think law enforcement, it is a really hard one. It's like airline pilots. They have just such a terrible schedule. And it does make it hard. But I see tons of guys and girls that make it happen because it's got to be a priority. So, what do you we're upcoming on the 4th training for Integrated Defense Strategies with Todd Fossey, our Citizen Defender program here at RMSDF. What do you touched on it a little bit, but what do you think of some of the really good benefits for the law enforcement officer? And then we're now talking citizen, which they are, off duty. Tell us about what you think, being an instructor and just as a Joe Schmo guy. How do you feel that training has helped you with all of your other law enforcement? You've done a ton. How many years in law enforcement again?
32.
32 years in law enforcement. So we'll just say it was at 31-ish when we brought in the Citizen Defender program. So tell us about it.
Well, I think my biggest takeaway from the biggest takeaway is I think my shots improved a ton since I started doing this.
Yeah, what's the hit ratio? What's the percentage for law enforcement?
Not very good.
Not very good.
We
you don't even want to say it on it.
I don't know.
You know it.
I always say it's not a good gunfight unless the cops reload. So that's actually what the hit ratio is. It's not very good. So, but the reality is, I think a big portion of a police officer's life is either you're on the street or you're off the street. Well, if you're off the street, like you said, you're in Denver especially. I'll run across people that I've contacted before when I'm not working.
Yeah.
So your chances of actually finding somebody that may not like you is a lot greater than not. And so they require us to carry when we're not on duty. And when we carry when we're not on duty, what do? We conceal it. Well, before I started doing the Citizen Defender program and working on my concealed carry, I thought that everything would click. You know, if the bad occurrence happens, this is the mentality. If something bad happened, you know, I think about, I have to preface that, whatever. I do think about like, well, what would happen if I was in the mall and something happened? What are my steps? But this gets the actual like, okay, if I turn the corner and I'm in the food court and something bad's happening right in front of me, which is pretty commonplace if you look across the country of where some bad things happen, and I have my gun, what do I do? If the guy's right there with a gun right in front of me, or he's pointing at somebody else or wherever, how fast can I get my gun out? Do I get my gun out then? Do I seek cover, concealment? And I think that's something that the Citizen Defender program gives to the regular citizen. If you're a regular person that carries a concealed weapon and you're involved in an incident, you know, drawing your gun out for the first time because you've always gone to the range and had your gun out, you're drawing your gun out for the first time in a critical incident that you may save your family's life. If you haven't practiced that, it's going to be very interesting, and you may or may not survive in actuality.
Yeah, that's like a big thing that we see in the program, that just getting it out of the holster and clearing your garment is a huge issue, because people may have put a lot of rounds down range, but that's from out of the holster. And now it's a critical incident. There's stress. Well, that's something we're really trying to do. And it really, I think, wakes up a lot of people that they think, I'm just going to draw my gun, and the clothes, whatever attire you're wearing can really cause an issue with that. And you're getting those reps under stress. And, you know, people think it's going to be easy. And they have this, you know, predetermined what's happening.
And the cert we use is an amazing tool for practice, reality, because it gives you that feel. And you don't have to shoot a real gun, and you can actually feel like you're drawing and engaging and doing something that normally with a real gun you don't have the ability to do.
Yeah.
I mean, it's ways similar. The trigger pull's somewhat similar. There's a lot of sight, picture, stuff like that gives you the advantage of actually drawing and shooting something in a situation where you're just not standing there on a range shooting that target in front of you.
Yeah.
So it gives you that practice where you don't have to go to, well, you can't any other time. I mean, really, you can't get that practice anywhere else.
Yeah, you can't have somebody charging you. You can't practice that. I mean, there's the pros and cons to every training tool. You know, we see it with the CERT training pistol that people will try to use a laser to aim, which is a big no-no. That's not what you're doing. You know, you got to use your sights, but you can see the hit. That's the benefit. You know, when we do, unless we're doing our RAM pistols here, shooting rubber balls at each other, or, you know, paintballs make a mess. So we usually use rubber balls when we do that training, which takes up time, right? You got to reload, you got to do CO2, you got rubber balls all around the gym or whatever. If you're training outside, the CERT pistol gives you that feedback versus, you know, even in our weapon disarms here, if you're going to take it away and the guy's drawing a knife on you, you can see that you're hitting center mass, or you're, even as the instructor, like, you missed them or you hit him in the arm and he's on you. You didn't even get a center mass shot on that guy. So they're a great tool.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you can do mag changes with them. You can't do slide relock because, or any of that stuff. But your brain doesn't know the difference on getting that out of the holster and putting rounds on somebody that's coming after you. I just had it yesterday. I had that big crowbar that you had. I was like, whoa, that thing is long. That it had nicked me in a thing we did this winter. And somebody let me get, I was threatening them with that big tire iron, crowbar, and they let me get close enough. They went to their draw, but they weren't able to integrate their hand-to-hand skills with the weapon, and I ended up hitting them, simulating right on the side of their head, neck, going, you just took something that might cause a brain injury for the rest of your life, and who cares about that guy and whatever happens. Now you've got a brain injury, worst case scenario, or you're knocked out and they take your gun and use it against you and your family. And so what if you hit them 2 times? They're still going. They're still going.
And I think to add on that, TV is probably one of our worst enemies as a concealed carry person, because you think that I draw my gun and we're in this situation where I got you, bang, bang, I got you, everything's fine. But the reality is, if I draw my gun, I stick it out there, you grab it, well, what do I do? Oh my God, he's holding my gun. Now I have to struggle for my gun.
Yeah.
Right? At that point, we're like, we think that we can just sit here and carry a gun around and everything's going to be super easy because that's what we've seen on TV. It's going to take 1 or 2 shots. The guy's going to fall down on the ground.
Yeah.
Give us the best impression. Give us the best impression of being dead. And the reality is, you may get 1 shot off, and then they're holding your gun after that, and you're fighting over your gun.
Yeah. We see so many people going, "I'm shooting you." I'm like, maybe once.
Yeah.
But now you realize that the slide's not going. You realize your weapon is malfunctioning. And so many people don't. Mm-hmm. They're going back in their head, in a drill. They're saying bang, which I hate, like bang, bang, bang. You're thinking you're pulling the trigger, but you need another skill set of weapon retention, whether it's standing up or on the ground, and all things that we're doing in that program. That's why, there's so many great martial arts out there. But what we try to do, we're doing self-defense. And I think people lose, I don't know what contact with it, but it's not, they lose that. Sometimes they get caught up in a martial art that might be too competition based, and they're great things, but they're not street self-defense and kind of the things that we're trying to do here of going, integrate your firearm. That's totally different, and how much time that takes. And we all know we don't have that much time. So that's kind of how I prioritize what we're doing for our self-defense and fighting here, of keep it simple, stupid, a lot of times. And there's a lot to train on. Especially when you think, retain your weapon, or keep your pepper spray, whatever the heck it might be. It all integrates into our Citizen Defender and our Krav Maga program. So it's train more, suck less. So you get that shirt. Great way to support the podcast, either shop.rmsdf.com or shop.clearsky.training. What is it? Shop.clearsky.training. There's a lot of dots in there. I messed that up today. The producer will edit it out. Josh doesn't know how to edit. So that's a great way. We and continue to add stuff onto the ClearSky.Training portal. So if you want to train from home, if you want to review, if you're a member here at RMSDF, that's a great way to review and get that content versus trying to go off your memory. Our memories are all fading, it's tough. Self-defense is tough. So it's a great way to supplement your training with us or anywhere else. If you're doing Krav Maga, we've got a ton of curriculum on there for you guys to use and disseminate, where YouTube has a lot of crap. So All right, Nick, we're running a bit long. I appreciate you coming on the show and talking about your experience here.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Have you back because I know you got some great stories of being, guns going off and those tussles and with suspects and all that stuff. You've got some good stories, so I'll have to get you back on the show. All right, guys, thanks a lot for joining us today. Train more, suck less.